First source for Alexander.
You need more exercise?
Just short of 300 years later.
The first source for Alexander. Did you hear? Am I wrong here? Did he not say that?
That's what he said.
Biography that we have of Alexander is Alexander the Great is almost 300 years later. And the best biography.
That's not true at all. In fact, he's kind of right.
Dog, come on.
So here's what he's doing. He's doing exactly what he did before with the Livy and the text with Herodotus, saying we don't have anything from those sources. But it's bullshit because we know for a fact that when Alexander died, first of all, while he was alive, he had a biographer following him around named Castellanus. He was writing what was known as the journal. So this is referenced by other people that knew. So we know this was already happening. Aristobulus is quoted by people in the ancient world in the Ptolemaic Empire, the Seleucid Empire. He was writing a history as far back as 310 BC, 20 years within Alexander's death. Cleitarchus wrote a history within a decade of Alexander's life, wrote a whole entire story. Ptolemy wrote this. Ptolemy wrote a history. He said that Alexander was the son of Ammon. Ptolemy carved the story in the walls in Luxor about Alexander freeing none of us can read hieroglyphics, but please fact check me on this. Please look this up. Ptolemy wrote on the walls of Luxor that Alexander the Great came to Egypt, freed them from the bonds of the Persians, and he was the son of Ammon, the god who lives in the desert in Siwa in Egypt, and that Alexander visited Ammon and was told that he is the son of God and that he would go conquer the world. This is all written on the walls of Egypt, and so he founded 30 plus cities. What cities did Jesus find? Okay, and now I'm getting a little too
hell.
I want to focus on the text, but this is just mind blowing shit right here.
Well, that someone is saying this so loudly, so confident, and so wrong.
Right.
Like
biographies of Alexander are 425 to 450, almost half a millennium.
No, he's talking about Diodorus Siculus, and Diodorus Siculus literally writes in his writings that he's borrowing from the sources that I mentioned. He literally tells you this. It was known as a Vulgate. The Vulgate was the sources. It was Aristobulus, Cleitarchus.
Yeah.
Diodorus Siculus is literally using sources that are older than him. And we know this. We know that the ancients couldn't preserve texts. They had to copy them, pass them down. That's just how it was. So for him to compare,
I mean, what did they think that there's like a fax machine back there? Like,
yeah, do they have freezers to
we're
put
Xeroxing things now?
It's this is a PhD scholar saying this shit, man, and I'm an amateur.
Yeah.
The fact that I can figure this out is like what?
Mark
Google
at plus 40.
You could just Google it.
Excellent.
And
too late to be valuable. And I said, way too late to be valuable at plus 40 to plus 65? Yeah, way too late. I said, do you read much ancient history? Oh, the answer was obviously no.
You don't.
And I said, well, let me ask you a question. How much do we know about Alexander the Great? And I'm not using a bad example here. I'm using a good example. What about Alexander the Great?
I'm just trying to highlight that this is one of his famous speeches.
He's still a young man. Mm-hmm. He said, we know a lot about Alexander the Great.
He said this
first,
multiple places.
Source, extant source that we have for Alexander the Great on the same scale as the Gospels.
Do you hear what he just said? He said first source. He didn't say first full story. First source.
Same scale as the Gospels.
Look at this. This alone is a source for Alexander. This coin. I'm serious though. It shows him.
No, I know.
The horns. See those horns? That's the symbol of him being the son of Ammon, the god of the ram god or whatever.
Right.
So it's like we have archaeology. This right here. This is a cuneiform tablet found in Persia that it accounts the death of Alexander. So it's writing about Alexander has died today. It gets even crazier. This is literally Alexander was here. Literally. That's literally what it is. Alexander was here. And all over the ancient world, as I've shown you, he's finding cities and building new cities. Alexandria had the biggest library in the world. He found over 30 cities. Most of them were named Alexandria. Now,
Not confusing.
he's saying the first source for the life of Alexander is, look at.
Don't worry, I got a little ways to go. You get the idea?
No, I don't get the idea.
First source for Alexander,
You need more exercise?
just short of 300 years later.
The first source for Alexander. Did you hear? Am I wrong here? Did he not say that?
That's what he said.
The first source for Alexander the Great. Mind blowing. I mean, look at. I mean, I've showed you. Like, obviously, I showed it, but like, his name is written on walls. His story is being told by people. We have sources. We have people mentioning him. Like, what the fuck? I don't know. I get so worked up about this shit. I'm sorry.
Oh, I do too. Don't feel bad.
Crazy.
I know.
But man, we can sure know a lot about him. Best sources for Alexander, Arian and Plutarch.
Okay. He's comparing regular sources to best sources. So if you want to say that, fine. You can say best sources. But here we go. We have the Codex Sinaiticus, which is the oldest full Bible that exists. Is in 325 AD. This is put together.
Oh.
Before this, all you have is fragments like this. So under his own standards, we have 200 years later. No, 300 years later. I don't know. I couldn't do math for a second. So under his own standards, the Bible should
What
not be taken
standards?
seriously. He's saying that
He has no
that's
standards.
right? He doesn't have standards. Exactly.
Yeah, it's like his dating life, no standards whatsoever. No, but like really, he just takes whatever information he wants and then just fits it into whatever. But then when it comes to sources for other people, I mean, clearly he's fucking lying. Like,
Right. This is the description written by many people from the ancient world who visited the tomb of Alexander. This is what it looked like. We can put together a description based on how many descriptions. Augustus went to go visit him. Caesar went to go visit him. All these people loved Alexander. Ptolemy worshipped him. He was worshipped as a god. He was deified. Like here's a picture of his tomb. You know what I mean? Like there's so many. I'm trying to figure out, what does he mean by sources? Does he mean like what is he talking about? I don't understand what he's talking about.
do you think he knows what he's talking about? Because
No,
I'm not sure. Is it like he's like saying words, and I know what they mean individually, but together they're not making a lot of sense.
And then you compare that to, so I've literally just showed like archaeology sources that go back to the time of Alexander's life, not just 40, 50 years later. What can you say about Jesus? What
Yeah, and it
Nothing.
boggles my mind, right? That like God is going to go through, even if we leave aside how fucking nuts that entire plan of salvation is, we won't even talk about that. You are going to send your son to earth to die for people. And it's obviously very important to you because you're doing this thing. And then you just don't remind anyone to like write it down while it's happening. Like to like do something to make it believable. No, you get a bunch of accounts that contradict each other a lifetime. I mean, not a lifetime, but 30 to 40 years after the fact. Like, oh God.
No, and what you just
Sorry.
said is what you said. Christians roll their eyes when you say shit like that.
I know.
But let's be real for a second. You got a guy who's claiming to be the Son of God, and he wants everyone to believe in him. That's all he wants. He doesn't care what you do. If you believe in me, your sins are washed away, right? So you would think he would write something down and say, "This is my edicts. This is my laws. This is what I want people to follow." You would think that somebody following him, like the real Matthew or the real Peter, would actually, not some later guy saying I'm Matthew and Mark, which scholars all agree is what happened. These Gospels are not written by the original Matthew or original Luke. These are written by someone saying I'm Luke. That's seriously. Like Luke,
and it's not even that. It's like someone wrote it, and then in the 2nd century, somebody was like, "Let's attribute this name to it."
Right.
They're all anonymous. It's not like someone saying like, "I, Luke, am writing this," and we just don't know who the fuck Luke is. It's like somebody else just slapped it on there later on. And that's all.
What gets me the most about this is like, you can pull up any historian who's written, like you can look. Rufus wrote a book about Alexander the Great. Let's see, Plutarch, Rufus, Arian, Timagenes, I can't pronounce the name, Ptolemy, Diodorus of Sicily, Fedorovsky, all these people who wrote biographies of Alexander the Great, when you look them up, they wrote other stuff. They wrote about morals. They wrote about other people. What about these? So you look at Luke and Matthew and Mark. These are really elaborate texts. These are well written. They know Greek really well. This is not some dumb idiot in the desert somewhere. Somebody who knows how to write and read is writing this. So what else is he writing? What other works of Luke do we have? Nothing.
Yeah, maybe Acts.
That's a red flag. Yeah, he wrote it all together though. Luke. Acts,
there isn't any. There isn't any, and also you really genuinely, you don't think if there's some guy walking on water that somebody wasn't going to notice that?
Right.
Like anybody? One person.
And what's so mind-blowing about what you just said is you have 20, maybe more, maybe 30 authors and historians alive in that time. Philo was living in Alexandria. He was a Jew who believed in the Trinity. He believed that the Logos would be the Son of God, and he was looking for the Messiah. Never writes, doesn't mention Jesus once. Pliny the Elder, not Pliny the Younger, Pliny the Elder, was in Judea. He met the Essenes. He's writing about prodigal births, miracles, doesn't mention Jesus. That's in the 50s. Then you have Seneca, nothing. He's writing in the same time period. I can literally give a list. I'll show it on the screen right now as I'm editing. This is a list of all the writers in the first century. None of them mention Jesus. Only Josephus and that church father, Clement of Alexandria. And then other than that, it's just like epistles of Paul and
fan fiction.
Exactly. So back to the point I was trying to make from what you said. If you had a guy who was really doing all this stuff, who was performing miracles, walking on water, feeding 5,000 people with fish, why is that none of them have heard of this? Even if they didn't believe it, even if they thought it was bullshit, they should have wrote, there's a guy claiming to be the Messiah in Israel right now. He's got 5,000 followers. This is a big deal. None of them say that.
Yeah. They don't even say his name.
You're right. They don't. And and the ones that do get his name wrong. Crestus. Some guy named Crestus. Like, that's, to me, it's just like, this is why I deconverted. Because they're doubling down on this shit instead of being honest and being like, the evidence is really bad, but I just believe it. I believe this story. I like the parables. I love the parables. I believe it. Fine. If that's what I appreciate that. Whatever.
I'd rather have someone be honest and just be like, yeah, I don't know that I can prove this historically, but I believe it, and it's making my life better.
That's what separates the good scholars like Dale C. Ellison Jr. from Gary Habermas. You don't see Dale C. Ellison Jr. going to churches and talking about there's more proof for Jesus than Alexander the Great. You would never see him say that. In fact,
because it's bullshit.
In fact, you see him saying, "Oh, the Gospels disagree. There's contradictions." You see him saying stuff like that, but yeah, he still believes. He has a personal reason why he believes. Nothing wrong with that.
Great. Yeah, I don't care about people's personal beliefs. I care about the lies that they spew.
Exactly.
Because those are dangerous and they harm people, right? Like, people might not see it as like, well, what do you care if they're pushing that the Gospels are a historical, reality? Well, I care because they're then extrapolating that the rest of the Bible is also a historical reality and is inerrant and carries these rules that we should all follow. And then they push ideologies that are harmful to people based on this because they can't see the Bible in any other way except for historical fact and like the gold standard of how to live your life.
Right. So I want to end on a funny note.
I cannot stand Cameron.
Yeah, no. So the reason why I'm showing you his face right now is because a couple weeks ago he put out a video, and it was new evidence from the resurrection that no one's heard of yet. Oh my God, what could this possibly be? And this, I'm
sure, and this random guy now has it.
Yeah, so watch this clip, and I want you to pay attention to Cameron's his
terrible haircut.
No. Like the way just watch his face. Watch how he goes from being interested to what is this to being like, oh, there's nothing here. Just watch.
Hey, welcome to Capturing Christianity. I'm Cameron Bertuzzi. Today I am joined by Dr. Gary Habermas, and we're looking at some new evidence for the resurrection of Jesus. It's going to be a really exciting episode because I don't even know what he's talking about. I don't know what this new evidence is. He's actually just going to reveal it here live on the streams.
Now, some of the things I'm talking about will be familiar to people, but I think it's the arrangement of them that's really new. So let me say it this way.
Fast forward it for a reason. I just want to show you, look at his reaction.
He's using terms that they probably know a lot about before he writes the letter to them. So that's earlier than 1 Thessalonians. Okay. Now let me back up from the other end. Am I making sense so far?
Yep.
Or slow down on any of this?
No, it's good. Yeah, just keep going. I'll slow you down if you need to.
Speed it up, buddy.
Dude, that
That's
reaction was
hilarious.
fucking crazy. If you're a Christian,
You saw him like sink.
you saw, yeah, that's why I fast forwarded. I wanted you to see like the time lapse of his like interest, and then it gets to him looking at his phone, like, what am I listening?
Like, not this bullshit again.
If you're a Christian like Cameron is, and nothing bad to say about Cameron, he's got a good channel, but
I don't like.
what? Yeah, I mean, besides some of them shits he says, but whatever. The fact that he is a Christian and he's got a PhD scholar going to tell him, I have new evidence of the resurrection, and that's his reaction. I don't know if that's new evidence there.
Doesn't sound like new evidence. It doesn't sound like any evidence at all by a like legal standard.
But notice how he worded it. He says, this might not be new evidence, but it's the arrangement of the evidence.
But I'm going to tell you in a different order.
Right.
Why?
That's what Gary Habermas does. He's working off his emotions of, I believe in this. I want it to be true. So I'm going to be the white knight, and I'm going to make it true. I'm going to be the source for all Christians. They could use me and say, look, I got a guy who knows what
I know a guy.
Right.
He's met Jesus. Trust me. Just trust me, bro.
And that's what it comes down to. In the movie Case for Christ, Lee Strobel walks up to his friend who's a Christian. Lee Strobel is an atheist at the time.
Uh-huh.
What sources do you got? And he throws a book on the table and says, Gary Habermas
thinks I'm trying to assassinate Christianity. You sure you want to hand me that gun?
I'm pretty sure you're not going to be able to pull the trigger.
All right, who's the big authority on the resurrection? Dr. Gary Habermas. He debated Antony Flew. That guy's one of my heroes.
He's in Wisconsin, by the way.
Like, it's just crazy. And this is the top of the pyramid for the Christians right here.
Good Lord. If that's the top, like, I don't even, usually I at least have like a joke, but like, I'm just so sad that that's the top of the pyramid. Like,
it's just crazy. It's just crazy how they're still going so strong in America. I mean, I guess
it's in Mariana's Trench.
I guess that in Europe, it's not really like that anymore. They're kind of figuring shit out over there.
I think it's largely evangelicals, to be honest, because I know there's a lot of denominations, especially that aren't in America, that just sort of like the community. They have like a basic belief in the Bible, but they're not sitting there like trying. I mean, it's like a very post-Enlightenment take on the Bible, right? Where you're like, oh, I'm going to scientifically prove everything. That's not how the books were written. That's not what their purpose was. Nobody before that approached the Bible that way. And then you get this trend afterwards, and it's being taken to just the nth degree by these people. But the evidence is simply not there. No matter how many ways you want to talk about, well, you know, this happened around there, or this person said something about this, like, what actual hard evidence do we have that this thing happened? Like, you're telling me that Jesus died, the tombs opened up, a bunch of zombies popped out and walked around, and nobody wrote it down?
Right.
Like,
in fact, out of the 4 Gospels, only Matthew remembers that zombies came out of the fucking ground.
Right? Like, that's I feel like we brush over that too much, where it's like,
are we being serious? And then, or how about Philip baptizing the Ethiopian, and then he teleports to a fucking new city? Wait a minute, what did that? When does that happen ever?
Through Christ, all things are possible, brother.
Exactly.
So, including teleportation.
Yeah, it's just wild shit.
Yeah.